Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, my comic book friends, and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I am Gary, your host, and this time I want to take a look at some more of my Tarzan comics from Dell, from my collection. And you know by now, if you've followed me for any length of time, that I am a big Tarzan fan. I have a good-sized collection of Tarzan comics, and I have been just gradually going through it through the Tarzan comic books from Dell. You know, started off with showing some photo covers from featuring Lex Barker, and then I had a couple of years of some painted covers by Mo Golub, and then I had some more photo covers featuring Gordon Scott. Well, this time I finished all the Gordon Scott covers that I've got. So now we're back to some painted covers. Now, this one here is starts off with issue 111 from Dell. So this would have been from 1959. This would have been probably just a few issues after that last Gordon Scott cover. I don't remember which one that was. And I'm not sure who the cover artist was. The only thing I could find that referenced it said it's George Wilson, but it looks a little different from George Wilson's stuff. But I am only familiar with his stuff from the later 60s, and it's the style looks just a bit different, but similar enough. It could be the same artist, could be George Wilson, but maybe his style has evolved a little bit, or he developed some different techniques to refine it. So here we have this is a really nice action-packed cover, kind of getting away from the very sedate covers that Mo Golub, some of the covers that Mo Golub was doing. But here it is. Take Tarzan Bundle Gimla Bund. And here we have, this is number 112. Another fairly dynamic. This not quite as dynamic. If it is George Wilson, it's not quite as dynamic as his later paintings. But this is still a lovely painting of considering Tarzan's taking on a lion with a spear. And I forgot to mention which one. It's the same for the others, but this one is easier to get into. Of course, it's still Jesse Marsh interior art. And for those who may not be familiar with Jesse Marsh's art, here is a sample of his art. And with Brothers of the Spear backup story drawn by, where is it? Here it is, by the great Russ Manning, who then later took over after Jesse Marsh passed away in 1966. That's some great artwork. And of course, Russ Manning then also left the comic books to do the comic strip. And it did some very, very memorable. And as far as I know, all of these stories here are written by Gaylord Dubois. And here we go, number 116. And this is a nice cover. I like that gorilla a lot, that ape, a lot here on this cover. This is kind of rough. And then I have another copy, and it's probably just as rough without the plastic. You can see more Jesse Marsh, and of course at this time, this is when it still featured Jane and Boy, just like in the just like in the older movies. This one's 16. This one was, I think, was it 118? Yeah, I think this one's 118. And this is Tarzan and the Waziri, battle warriors of the walled valley. And here's Tarzan and Boy on the cover. And of course, they completely got rid of Boy in the mid '60s when they had him grow up and become Korak the Killer, Korak, son of Tarzan. And then eventually Jane just faded away. But that's not for some time yet. And here is issue 120. So these would have been in this 1960. To save the ancient Bushman, Tarzan fights a Bantu warrior to the death. Very dynamic painting of Tarzan fighting a native warrior. And we got 121. This is real rough and has stapled attached, but this is a real nice cover painting of Tarzan coming up against a T-Rex. And of course, it's the older version of what we thought T-Rex looked like, but you can tell it is a T-Rex as opposed to some of the other theropods, or not necessarily a T-Rex, but a Tyrannosaur, because there were several species of Tyrannosaur, because the Tyrannosaur had 2 fingers on their forearms, and their forearms were slightly smaller than other theropods. And that's your science lesson for today. And here's another one. Now this one is looking more like what I think of when I think of George Wilson. And it says, the monkeys and the great apes join Tarzan in a hunt for an escaped tyrant. Ooh. Yeah, he's about to draw down on this war canoe filled with warriors, and he is flanked by great apes. And notice the difference between this ape and the gorilla in that other painting. And this looks more like what I think of with George Wilson. This is issue 123. And then I have a second copy of that issue. This is that centerfold detached. See, these are old rough. That's how I got them so cheaply. I can't afford the more expensive ones. And I wanted to point out, you noticed earlier on, the cover price was 10 cents. And then, rather suddenly, I think it was, here, this is 123, so it was 122 or 123. The price went up to 15 cents, and which was considerably higher than the competition at that time. And I have to wonder if that might not have been one of the... Now, this really looks like a George Wilson painting. It says, prizes, 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 announcing big Dell Comics contest. Tarzan turns enemies into allies to fight a savage horde. This would have been the, the Horribs in Paul Aldan. And, fighting all these strange people and monsters from the Valley of Paul Aldan. And of course, remember, they kind of incorporated all the lost worlds that Tarzan had interactions with. They put them all into the Valley of Paul Aldan. And I think that's the last one I've got in this batch. So that's what we've got this time for some great Tarzan covers from Dell from about 1959 and 1960, maybe up into 61. I'm not sure offhand. It's June, and I have to wonder if maybe the price, maybe the rise in price, might not have been one of the reasons that that Gold Key split off from the Western Publishing created Gold Key and split off from Dell because their prices were 5 cents more than anybody else's at this time. And then, of course, with Gold Key, they were back down to 12 cents. We'll see that later. I think they were back down to 12 cents anyway. Or 10 cents, 12 cents. So that's what we've got this time. Of Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle, King of the Apes. Oh, my wife is sleeping, so I can't do my Tarzan yell. But I do want to thank you for joining me. Please like, share, subscribe. Share it with your other friends who might be Tarzanophiles or herbophiles. And leave me a comment. What do you think of these books during this Dell era? And there's so many more. I've got several more, and we'll see some more later. But that's what I've got this time. And I just really enjoyed all these eras of Tarzan in the comics. So remember, comics are art.